Nick Kyrgios somehow tends to find himself in the middle of a lot of trouble. Recently, news of the Aussie withdrawing from the United Cup shocked everyone. After all, he did pull out just 24 hours before the event was supposed to happen. But while the fans were surprised, Lleyton Hewitt was furious. Today, let's talk about how Nick Kyrgios hit back at Hewitt after pulling out of the United Cup team. Starting with Hewitt's frustration. Because of an injury, Kyrgios decided at the last minute to pull out of the United Cup. Australian team captain Lleyton Hewitt reacted angrily to what he saw as a lack of communication from Kyrgios' camp. The 27-year-old pulled out of the tournament just before he was scheduled to make a news conference, and the director made the announcement. Hewitt and the other Australian players had no idea why Kyrgios had pulled out of the match until he announced it via the microphone. With the Australian Open starting on January 16th, Tennis Australia chairman Craig Tiley announced that Kyrgios was resting as a precautionary measure to safeguard his ankle. This led to all sorts of rumors. Some even speculated that the Wimbledon finalist withdrew to prepare for his home Grand Slam in top physical form after a history of ailments. However, Lleyton Hewitt criticized Kyrgios' lack of communication about his withdrawal at the pre-event press conference, saying that he didn't appreciate Kyrgios not communicating the change beforehand. He talked about how he and the rest of the team were in the dark about Nick's injury and pulling out of the event. The captain ended his statement by saying that he's super proud of de Minaur, who replaced Kyrgios in the match as Australia's top men's seed, and that it was pretty tough not knowing what was going on the last 24 hours before the beginning of the United Cup, not just for him, but for the whole team. Moving on, he had other complaints too. That's not all though. Hewitt also said that it took a little time before he heard from Kyrgios. When asked what might be done to increase communication, he said that all Nick needed to do was to answer him, since that's the usual way of doing things. He talked about how it would have been fine if Nick was the only person affected by the decision, but when things revolve around the team and the other people and their preparation, they want to be in the loop with how things are proceeding, especially when they're entering a tournament. That's probably the hardest thing. As a result of Kyrgios' absence, Hewitt had to rearrange his pack, promoting Alex de Minaur to play in place of his colleague. Despite the promotion, de Minaur still lost in straight sets against Norrie at the Ken Rosewall Arena in Sydney. And doing all that, rearranging your entire team just 24 hours before one of the biggest events of the tennis world must have been super chaotic for the man. So when he lashed out and called out Nick for his poor communication skills, not many people blamed him. De Minaur, who was scheduled to play Dan Evans of the United Kingdom and Pablo Carreno Busta of Spain, will instead play Nadal the following week. De Minaur had been training for two right-handers, Evans and Carreno Busta, but Norrie and Nadal are both left-handed, which is a significant difference. Up next, here's how Nick responded. If you thought the Aussie was going to stay quiet about all of that, you were dead wrong. True to his reputation, he immediately clapped back at Lleyton. Just recently, he responded to Ajla Tomljanovic's late withdrawal from her match with Harriet Dart by attacking the former Grand Slam winner. A tweet stating, "Big blow," circulated online, talking about the Ajla issue. In response, Nick said, I wonder if Stosur will throw her under the bus as our captain did for me. He also went on to say that it was hard for him to prepare for something he didn't know was going to happen, referring to the injury. Geez, that sounds completely like something Nick would say. Not that we blame him either. Maybe he really needed to withdraw to feel his best, right? According to Nick, the reason why he wasn't able to communicate the decision to his team was that everything was so last minute. So all in all, it's been a pretty chaotic couple of days for Nick, his former team, and the league. But hold up, because that's not the end of it all. Following up, Nick's manager called out the haters. Daniel Horsfall, Nick Kyrgios' manager, has posted a rebuttal to the widespread criticism of Nick Kyrgios that both social media and traditional media have fueled. He coined the term tall poppy syndrome to describe the phenomenon. For those unfamiliar, tall poppy syndrome is the popular perception that people tend to criticize or condemn individuals who have achieved great wealth or public stature. Kyrgios moved to social media to express his displeasure with the Australian team captain Lleyton Hewitt after hearing Hewitt speak freely about him to reporters. In response to Daniel Horsfall, he wrote, "My brother expressing facts" in the caption. Things are definitely heating up over here. Not to mention, Daniel had a lot more to say. Daniel Horsfall told The Age that Nick Kyrgios and his team are pumped up for the Australian Open and putting in extra time and effort each day to prepare. Though his withdrawal from the United Cup disappointed many, his management has expressed the hope that his clients will now see that his ailment is serious. He hopes that in the future, more people will be curious about a topic before offering their opinion on it. Prior to competing in the Australian Open, Nick is scheduled to participate in a warm-up competition in Adelaide to help him return back to the game after his injury. Nick Kyrgios told the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age that anybody who doesn't play professionally doesn't have a good grasp of the game. Whether you plan on advancing in the tournament or not, winning a match at the Grand Slam level is no simple feat. Most people don't realize how stressful and nerve-wracking it can be to compete in a major event. Besides the already enormous amount of strain you're under, an injury and the realization that you didn't give yourself the greatest opportunity just compound it. So it is essential to have excellent physical health. Let's talk about how Kyrgios demands apology after Netflix reveal. Nick Kyrgios, a controversial tennis player from Australia, has asked his haters to apologize by pointing out that an upcoming Netflix documentary about the sport's inner workings would center on him. Breakpoint, a series created by the same people behind the smash hit Drive to Survive, which follows the world of Formula One, is streaming on Netflix very soon. He has been at the center of many controversies this week. He abruptly withdrew from Australia's United Cup squad, was criticized by Davis Cup captain Lleyton Hewitt for his decision, and then announced that he will play doubles with his arch-rival Novak Djokovic. Because of Kyrgios' propensity for controversy, he unintentionally became the star of a new Netflix tennis series that will reveal rivalries and disputes behind the scenes. The Aussie has embraced his newfound fame and claimed to be funding the activity. After all this criticism, Nick decided to hit his haters back with the news that he was going to be part of the very first episode of the docuseries. Kyrgios talked about how he was not only going to put tennis back on the map and expand the game's fan base, but this was also going to lead to more money for people involved with the sport, including his critics. "Your apology should be as loud as your disrespect was," said Kyrgios at the end of his statement, saying that everyone who was criticizing him would look super ridiculous after all of this. What's more, the Netflix series shows more vulnerable sides of him. Nick Kyrgios, in a raw interview for the first episode of Netflix's tennis documentary Breakpoint, discussed the chaotic beginning to his professional career. After being eliminated in the second round by Daniil Medvedev at the 2016 Australian Open, Kyrgios went on to an incredible run to win the men's doubles championship with Thanasi Kokkinakis, which was filmed by the media. Kyrgios is seen in this episode talking openly to his partner Kostine Hatzi about his difficulties with mental health and how he has learned to deal with the pressures of being a public figure. As seen in the video, Kyrgios complains to Hatzi about the chaos that marked his professional career's first 4 or 5 years. According to Nick, his manager saw a steady decline in Nick's health throughout the tour, when only the two of them were responsible for his care. His drinking had become a nightly ritual, and he was losing control of his life. He eventually realized that he couldn't keep doing this and that he needed to be kinder to himself. Nick said clearly that he would never again be one of those athletes that play throughout the year. No way he could pull off such a feat. He no longer prioritizes tennis over time with his loved ones, friends, and his girlfriend, Kostine. He went on to say that he doesn't believe that playing throughout the whole year is good for anyone's health. He said right now he goes into matches with no preconceived notions about how they'll go, just wants to go out and have some fun, relieve some stress, and see if they can't return to some kind of normalcy in their lives. For sure, this is a vast improvement. Finally, here's some insight from the rest. Daniel Horsfall is also part of the documentary, and the manager gives a pretty interesting insight into the life of the player. In the first episode of the Netflix series, Horsfall admits that he uses a monitoring tool on his phone to locate Kyrgios after they've both been out late. The episode also included interviews with and questions about Kyrgios from several of his opponent players, notably Stefanos Tsitsipas, with whom he has had previous run-ins. After a heated encounter with Kyrgios at Wimbledon, the Greek tennis player said sarcastically that it was not a surprise that the Australian had pulled out of the United Cup. Tsitsipas, when questioned about Kyrgios in the Netflix documentary, claimed the Australian simply becomes the devil when he hits the court, despite the fact that he is not a horrible man. Well, that's a wrap for this video. So what do you think about all this drama? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. We'll see you in the next one.